Welcome, dear listener. As the night wraps around your space like a soft velvet curtain, and the outside world begins to blur into silence, I invite you to take a long, unhurried breath and allow your thoughts to drift backwards into history. But not the loud, dramatic kind of history, not battles or revolutions. No, tonight we journey into the quiet corners of the past, into the dim, amber-lit corridors of a palace at the heart of a sprawling empire, a world that rarely raised its voice but ruled continents nonetheless. This is the Ottoman Empire. But rather than sultans on horseback or cannons at city gates, tonight you will walk through the hush of inner courts, where silk slippers whispered on tile, and power was often wielded from behind latticed screens. Our journey is one of 4 distinct movements, each as gentle and atmospheric as the last. First, we follow the footsteps of the palace eunuchs, figures half remembered, trained in silence, castrated in youth, and bound by duty. Men who were present for the most intimate moments of imperial life, but rarely allowed their own. Then we turn to a story of improbable love and real political power: Suleiman the Magnificent and Roxelana, the enslaved consort, who became the most influential woman in the empire. From there, we'll step onto the slow march of boots and drums, as we explore the disciplined and haunting lives of the Janissaries, boys taken from their homes to become the empire's most loyal and dangerous soldiers. And finally, we will draw back the curtain of the imperial harem, a space of elegance, strategy, education, and quiet resilience, where veiled women shaped the future of dynasties. Let your breath settle into rhythm. Let the flickering lamps of the past cast their golden light, and together we begin. Imagine you are no older than 10. Your name has been spoken for the last time by your family. You do not speak Turkish. You may not even know what the Ottoman Empire is. You come from the farthest corners of its trade routes, from the dry lands of Sudan, the hills of Ethiopia, or perhaps from Christian Europe, depending on the century. You are sold or taken, and then delivered, not to a family, not to a field, but to a palace, more specifically, to the palace. The journey is long. You sleep near others like you, boys in silence, too afraid to cry out. You pass through bazaars, across waters, past caravanserais lined with oil lamps, until the world sharpens into the minarets and walls of Topkapi Palace in the capital. Istanbul. There, your identity is removed gently, but thoroughly. Your clothing is taken. Your name is changed. Your language, if you knew one, will be replaced. And then, you are altered. The operation is done quietly, behind walls, by men who have done it before. No ceremony, no aftercare, just linen bandages, cool tile, and a dull ache that doesn't go away. You have become a eunuch, a harem. This is not the end of your transformation. It is only the beginning. You will be trained to obey, to observe, to be invisible. Your footsteps will become silent, your eyes downcast. You will learn the Ottoman court's rhythms, its hierarchy, its expectations, its contradictions. And if you survive, you will spend your life within walls, forever near power, but never possessing it. Now, you are a part of the palace's rhythm. Your mornings begin before dawn, not with noise, but in ritual. A basin of cool water, a folded robe, bare feet on smooth stone. You do not wake by choice. Your sleep is light, always ready. In the hierarchy of eunuchs, there is order. White eunuchs, often of European origin, oversee the outer palace and the administrative wings. Black eunuchs, typically of African origin, guard the harem, the imperial inner sanctum. You, likely, are of the latter. Your tasks are invisible but vital, ensuring no one enters the harem without permission, escorting concubines to and from lessons or baths, serving the Valid Sultan, the Sultan's mother, arguably the most powerful woman in the empire. You eat after others have finished. You wear simple clothing. You are always available, never noticed. And yet, you know everything. You know who visits the Sultan's chambers. You know whose child is gaining favor. You hear things no one else hears. You pass messages between women who rule empires from within golden cages. You are not permitted family. You do not leave. You do not grow old elsewhere. Your life is bound to the palace, and in time, the palace becomes bound to you. If you are clever, silent, and loyal, you may rise. Some eunuchs become chief black eunuchs, Kisler Asa, commanding the harem, speaking directly with the sultan, managing enormous religious endowments. But even then, you do not celebrate. You do not feast. You walk quietly, with keys that do not jingle. You are the one who opens the door and disappears behind it. Your power, in time, becomes undeniable. You are the one who manages the communication between the harem and the rest of the palace. You control who sees whom. You oversee security. You sign documents. You hold religious authority through Waqf foundations, charitable trusts that build mosques, libraries, and soup kitchens across the empire. But still, you do not belong. You have no heirs, no lineage. Your face does not appear in paintings. Your stories are told in whispers, if at all. And when your time comes, whether in your 50s or 70s, you die not with pageantry, but with precision. Your body is washed, wrapped, and placed in one of the few cemeteries designated for eunuchs. Some are buried beneath modest markers, some with only titles etched into stone. No sons to mourn you, no daughters to remember your voice. And yet, your influence remains. The palace you once moved through still echoes with the steps of those who followed. The records you kept, the rooms you protected, the rituals you upheld, they shaped the flow of empire. In the world of the Ottomans, silence was power, and you were the master of silence. Now, imagine you are a young girl. Your name is Anastasia, or perhaps Alexandra. You are the daughter of an Orthodox Christian priest, growing up in what is now Ukraine, then a land of forests, hilltop villages, and Cossack unrest. Your life is ordinary, even humble, but one day, raiders arrive. Perhaps it's the Tatars, or perhaps you were traded down the line from one captor to another. But it doesn't matter now. You are placed in a caravan, sent west and then south, and arrive in Istanbul not by map or plan, but by fate. At the gates of Topkapi Palace, your name, your language, and your past are set aside. You are remade for service. You become Roxelana, a nickname given by others, meaning the girl from Ruthenia. You are now a concubine in training in the imperial harem. And here, your new life begins. You are taught Turkish, the Quran, calligraphy, embroidery, poetry. You are expected to become graceful, obedient, and intelligent. But above all, you are expected to be discreet. The harem is not only a space of beauty, it is a cage of etiquette and quiet competition. And somewhere beyond the silk curtains and guarded doors lives Suleiman, the 10th Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, a ruler of vast lands commanding respect and fear. You were never meant to meet him, not really. And yet, your paths cross, and in the soft cadence of time, everything begins to change. The year is 1520. Suleiman has just ascended to the throne. He is not yet magnificent. He is tall, thoughtful, reserved, fluent in Persian, Arabic, Turkish, a poet, a man of law, and in his chambers, among the gifted concubines sent to amuse him, is Roxelana. She does not merely charm him, she challenges him. She writes poetry in reply to his. She sings not just to please, but to reflect his longing. She makes him see her, not as property, but as an intellect. This was rare, and in the harem, it did not go unnoticed. In time, Suleiman breaks every precedent. He frees Roxelana, making her no longer a slave. He marries her in a public ceremony, violating centuries of tradition that forbade sultans from formal marriages with concubines. And suddenly, she is Hurrem Sultan, the joyful one. The Valide Sultan, Suleiman's mother, disapproves. So do his advisors. So do rival concubines. But it changes nothing. Hurrem's influence grows not through force, but correspondence, grace, and attention to palace. Politics. She bears Suleiman multiple children, and while this alone might grant her importance, it is her mind, her patience, and her awareness of the harem's undercurrents that truly grant her power. She does not scream. She writes. She builds. Her letters to Suleiman, sent during campaigns in Persia or Hungary, are filled with longing and playful wit. She calls herself his humble servant, while gently advising him on affairs of court. She gains his trust, then his reliance, and with that trust, the empire itself begins to shift. The Ottoman system had long avoided dynastic competition by limiting royal marriages. Each concubine bore only one son. Upon the Sultan's death, all his sons, raised in separate provinces, competed for the throne. But Hurrem had multiple sons. This changed the stakes entirely. She knew that only one could survive. Her chief rival was Mahidevran, mother of Prince Mustafa, the eldest and most popular son. Mustafa was strong, competent, and widely admired among the Janissaries and the public. But admiration could be fatal. Hurrem's sons, Selim, Bayezid, and others, stood little chance as long as Mustafa lived. And so began a long, quiet campaign. Whispers, accusations, alliances. In 1553, while on campaign in Persia, Suleiman had Mustafa summoned to his tent. There, in silence, Mustafa was executed by palace guards. The details are still debated. Did Hurrem orchestrate it? Did Suleiman act out of fear? The truth, like so much in court life, was hidden behind veils and titles. But the result was clear. Hurrem's son, Selim, became heir, and later, Sultan. The cost was immense. Suleiman, heartbroken, weary, never quite recovered. But Hurrem remained by his side until her death in 1558. She was buried beside the Suleymaniye Mosque, which she helped build. Not in the Harem cemetery, but in a grand tomb next to her husband. When Suleiman died in 1566, he too was laid beside her. Their tombs still stand, surrounded by tulips and Quranic calligraphy. Quiet, close. A sultan, a slave, and a story whispered for centuries in the marble hallways of empire. Now, let your thoughts drift eastward into the green hills and quiet valleys of the Balkans. The 15th century. You are a child, 8, perhaps 10 years old, the son of a Christian farmer. Your days are simple: tending goats, fetching water, watching the sky for weather that might spoil the crops. Then, the day comes. The Devshirme, the gathering, a practice unique to the Ottoman Empire, rational, systematized, and unsettling in its serenity. A group of Ottoman officials arrives. They speak Turkish. Their robes are dark. The villagers know why they've come. This is not a raid. It is a decree. Every few years, in select Christian provinces, the empire claims its due. Boys between the ages of 8 and 18. Intelligent, strong, unblemished. Not the sons of the nobility, those were often spared. But your family, you are simple. You are chosen. You are not beaten. You are not chained. Instead, you are gently removed. You are given new clothing, often better than what you've known. You are marched with dozens of others toward the heart of the empire, toward Istanbul. You do not cry. You do not fight. There is shame in your father's eyes, but also resignation. You are being taken, not as a slave, but as something more peculiar. You are to become a Janissary. You arrive in Istanbul and are assigned to a household. For a time, you live with a Turkish family, converting to Islam, learning Ottoman Turkish, Islamic law, and court customs. Then, your true training begins. You are brought into the Asemiokou, the rookie course. Here, your days unfold with a strict, almost monastic rhythm. Wake at dawn, wash, pray, train, eat, drill, rest, repeat. You sleep on straw mats in stone rooms with others like you. You do not own personal items. Your hair is cropped, your voice kept low. You train with wooden swords, then real ones, then muskets. You march until your feet blister, then are taught to sew your own bandages. You learn the arts of war, but also of obedience. The Janissary was not merely a fighter. He was a servant of the state, molded by discipline. You are forbidden to marry, forbidden to grow rich. For many centuries, even forbidden to speak loudly in public. You are taught music, not for pleasure, but for structure. The Mater Band, the Janissary military orchestra, plays percussion-heavy marches that you drill to until their rhythms enter your bones. The beating of the drum becomes part of you. It is said that when a Janissary band approached a city, the air itself changed. Imagine that sound in your ears, low, rhythmic, endless. Over time, your role evolves. You are no longer a simple conscript. You become part of an elite. The Janissaries are now the most trusted military unit in the empire, often guarding the palace, acting as the personal guard of the Sultan, and even influencing political decisions. In time, privileges return. Janissaries begin to marry, inherit property, and pass their positions down. The corps, once made entirely of Christian-born converts, now accepts the sons of Janissaries themselves. The rhythm of discipline weakens, and power shifts. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the Janissaries become kingmakers. They revolt. They depose sultans. They demand higher wages. Their drums, once symbols of unity, now signal unrest. The palace fears them, but cannot disband them until the 19th century. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II acts. In what would be known as the auspicious incident, the Janissary barracks are surrounded. The Sultan's new army, trained in European methods, opens fire. Thousands die. The corps is dissolved. And so ends an institution that once marched from childhood to empire, from discipline to rebellion. Their legacy? A strange one. Children taken from homes, trained into loyalty, risen to power, and finally destroyed by the very state they once served. Their music remains. Their uniforms linger in museum glass, but their rhythm has long since faded. The word harem has traveled a long way through the corridors of imagination. For many, it evokes sensual fantasy, rooms of reclining women, incense, and indulgence. But here, behind the golden doors of Topkapi Palace, the imperial harem was not a fantasy. It was an institution, a deeply organized, hierarchical system at the very core of imperial succession and power. It was not merely where women lived. It was where future sultans were raised, where alliances were built, and where influence flowed silently but steadily. Let us step inside. At the top of the hierarchy was the Valide Sultan, the Sultan's mother. She was the undisputed head of the harem. No matter how many concubines there were, or how favored a woman might be, the Valide Sultan held the reins. Below her were the Qadans, or legal wives of the Sultan, though he rarely took formal wives. Then came the Haseki Sultan, the chief consort, often the mother of the Sultan's eldest son. Further down were dozens, sometimes hundreds, of concubines, maids, and attendants. Some were barely teenagers when they arrived, trained for years in comportment, etiquette, art, and speech. And then there were the eunuchs, guardians of the harem's gates, as we've already seen. The harem was both a home and a court. Each room had its rules. Each stairwell had its watchers. It was a place of whispers, not shouts, of rituals, not chaos. And through its elegant quietude, history unfolded in soft, silken layers. Imagine now that you are one of these girls. You entered the palace as a slave, perhaps from Georgia, Circassia, or the Balkans. You were young, you were frightened, but you were observant. Quickly, you realized, here, knowledge was currency. You were taught languages, Ottoman Turkish, Arabic, Persian. You studied the Quran. You learned calligraphy, embroidery, and music. But most importantly, you learned people. The tone of voice a eunuch used, the time of day when the Valide Sultan took tea, the rhythm of rivalry between concubines. You learned where to stand and when to speak. In time, if you gained favor by beauty, wit, loyalty, or sheer presence, you might become a favored consort. And if you bore a son, your world changed completely. You would move into special quarters. Your status would rise. You would now be part of the ongoing and often delicate game of succession. Because here, sons were not just children. They were future rulers. And whoever controlled the child held a thread of the empire. Women in the harem formed alliances, often across ethnic lines. They backed one another's sons. They traded favors, positioned gifts, and maneuvered with quiet brilliance. They rarely left the palace walls, but their voices reached the ears of viziers, governors, even the Sultan himself. In the shadows of stone and gold, these women outlived wars, and in their own way, they won them. As your son grew, he too became part of the system. Each prince was sent to govern a province in adolescence, accompanied by his mother, who often continued to wield subtle control behind the scenes. This tradition, called Sanjak administration, served two purposes: to train future sultans in leadership and to test them. But the harem never really let go. Even from afar, the women remained tethered to court. Through letters, gifts, and whispers carried by eunuchs, they shaped the political landscape. Inside the palace, those who remained, such as the Valide Sultan, had their own court. They met with ambassadors. They approved marriages. They managed vast charitable foundations, building mosques, schools, and hospitals across the empire. In the 17th century, during what historians now call the Sultanate of Women, female influence reached its zenith. For nearly 130 years, the empire's most important decisions were often shaped behind the veil by mothers, wives, and widows. It was not rule by sword or decree. It was rule by relationship, by rhythm, by the quiet persistence of women who had learned that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones not spoken aloud. And when these women did, their stories rarely entered the official chronicles, but they were remembered in the endowments that fed the poor, in the fountains that still flow in Istanbul, in the schools where children studied Arabic letters by candlelight. They were veiled in life and unveiled in legacy. And now, our journey draws to a close. We have walked with eunuchs down silent corridors. We have watched love bloom between ruler and slave. We have heard the slow cadence of Janissary drums, and we have moved quietly behind the veil. These lives, though long gone, remain suspended in the stone of the palace, in the calligraphy of forgotten ledgers, in the memories carved into domes and gates. They lived not loudly, but with rhythm. A rhythm you've now felt, soft and deliberate, like the slowing beat of your own thoughts. Tonight, as you rest, you might still hear the echo of sandals on tile, the flutter of silk against a carved wooden screen, the soft murmur of a forgotten lullaby beneath Ottoman stars. And so we leave them, these figures of the past, right where they belong, in silence. Good night, and sleep well.